everyone, and welcome to Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Wakimbalo at Channels Television, Abuja. Like some people predicted, the issue of the mode of primaries is generating controversies. The House of Representatives has passed a resolution to invite the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, to brief the House on the cost of conducting direct primaries in the country. The motion to invite the INEC boss was raised by Honorable Leke Abejide, who informed the House that it was important to address the rumors of the cost of the direct primaries. Honorable Abejide said that there are rumors that it will cost about 500 billion naira to conduct direct primaries.
People have been saying that it will go up 500 billion. But this is just mere say. Nobody has ever sat down to check the actual cost it's going to cost the nation. It may be something that is within the capacity of the budget of INEC, or something that we can even appropriate for in this period that we are doing, considering this budget. Okay. So it is important for us to invite the chairman of INEC to meet with the committee of INEC in this hollow chamber and that of appropriation, for him to be able to tell them what is going to cost to do this direct primaries.
Thank you.
All right, there. The debate on the cost of conducting primaries, direct primaries. So, more advocacy are going on over the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which has been transmitted to President Muhammadu Buhari for assent. Some rights activists fear the president might not extend the bill and are asking the lawmakers to take action to veto the bill.
We, the undersigned civil society organizations, welcome the decision of the president to invite comments from relevant ministries, departments, and agencies of government on the bill. In this regard, the input from the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Interior, the Minister of Finance, and the Inspector General of Police are probably the most crucial. In their consideration of the bill, these office holders should be guided by the overriding public interest to strengthen our electoral process and the consolidation of our democracy.
We are calling on the National Assembly to vote the president. We need to move forward as a nation. Nigerians want a credible, free, fair, inclusive electoral process. As such, every action of political actors, especially the representative of the people, was geared towards representing the people. Therefore, in our opinion, it is important that the National Assembly stand on their position and ensure that we take our electoral or democratic process to the next level. If there is any individual who feels or group there are certain sections of the bill that they are not comfortable with, there is also opportunity. We are growing. Democracy is not a cast and stone process. It's about reviewing and continue to review. But we can't just fold our hands and watch few individuals who, because of their political interest, to put us in a quagmire that may not be comfortable to the majority of Nigerians.
Well then, you've heard them and the push for President to assent to the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Our focus tonight is on the NSAS report, the white paper by the Lagos State government. We're looking at the whole gamut of what has been raised in that report and moving forward, the real essence of the NSAS agitation, how we can achieve and focus on the issue that have been brought out in all of these, aside the reaction and counter-reaction. But let's stay on the issue tonight. That's what we're going to dwell on, but we'll take a break, or we'll take you around your political roundup.
Former President Goodluck Jonathan has been speaking about some of his decisions while in office. While delivering the graduation lecture to the Executive Intelligence Management Course 14 at the National Institute for Security Studies in Abuja, Dr. Jonathan explains that he had no idea that governors of states where he built their Majori schools were unhappy with him. He also explains his decision to place a call to President Muhammadu Buhari to congratulate him for winning the 2015 presidential election.
I called Buhari before the announcement of the results. I don't want a situation where people can creep through them.
Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court Abuja has brought forward the trial of the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, from January 18, 2022. The shift in the trial date, which was done in the absence of Nnamdi Kanu, follows the abridgment of time granted by the judge after a plea to that effect. The Kaduna State government has sacked 233 teachers for presenting fake certificates upon the time of their recruitment. The chairman of the State Universal Basic Education Board, Tijani Abdullahi, said at a news conference on Thursday that the teachers were sacked after inquiries from the institutions they claimed to have attended showed that they presented fake certificates.
The major objective of this exercise was to ensure that all our teachers have the requisite credentials that constitute the basic qualifications for employment as teachers.
Less than 8 months to the 2022 governorship election in Ekiti State, stakeholders in Ekiti South Senatorial District have insisted it's the turn of the zone to occupy the governor's seat. At a large gathering of the people in Ado, the state capital, the stakeholders took turn to highlight issues of marginalization, inequity, political deceit, and other unpleasant experiences of the senatorial districts.
All we are asking is that across all the parties, candidates must emerge from the South.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us right on the program. So our focus is on the white paper released by the Lagos State government, the outcome over the panel of inquiry report on the NSAS. The Lagos State government released a white paper, and out of which they stated that 11 of those 32 recommendations made by the panel have been accepted. 6 others were accepted with modifications, while 1 was rejected. The document also says that 14 of the recommendations fall outside the powers of the state and will consequently be forwarded to the federal government for consideration. Tonight, we shall be hearing from a member of the panel to react to the white paper and look at the solutions within. We also have Mr. Segun Awosanya, popularly called Shegling. He's going to be joining us from London virtually. And in our Lagos studio is Mr. Wahab Shitu. He's a senior lawyer, and he's going to be giving us insight into some of the legality and some of the issues that have been raised in all of this matter. Let's begin the conversation, everyone, shall we? Let me begin in our Lagos studio with Mr. Wahab Shitu. First and foremost, let's get some legal issues out of the way before we now start talking about the meat of the matter. First and foremost, the issue is now there is a white paper released by the state government, out of which came out of the panel report submitted by the panel of inquiry led by Justice Doris Okwebi. So it was a product of the panel report, the white paper that is. Now, the question is, which of these have the force of law? The panel of inquiry report, which has the backing of the Tribunal Act of Lagos, or the white paper, which has the sanction of the state government as an administrative body, somewhat like a delegated legislation?
Thank you, Shehu. I think we need to put certain facts in proper context. Nigeria, as we all know, operates a constitutional democracy, by virtue of which powers are expressly delineated to the 3 tiers of government. There are certain powers exclusively reserved for federal government in the exclusive legislative list. Certain powers are in the concurrent list to which the federal government and the Lagos State government can legislate upon. And certain powers are expressly reserved to the states in residual matters. So the constitutionality or the legality of the white paper, I mean the NSAS panel report and the white paper must be viewed against this background. Anything that I noted that there were altogether 32 recommendations made by the Judicial Panel of Inquiry. Out of that, Lagos State government accepted 11, accepted 6 with modifications, rejected 1, and also referred about 14 to federal government for implementation. Now, if you look at it, what the Lagos State government has done, I've carefully studied the Lagos State government white paper. I've looked at each of the recommendations, and I've also looked at the reactions of the Lagos State government to each of the recommendations. But the first point, before I even go into that, the first point that we need to make is that we must recognize the sanctity of life and properties. And we must also recognize the right of citizens in a constitutional democracy to embark on a protest. But having said that, I'm particularly impressed with the way the Lagos State governor has reacted. I followed his reaction from October 9, 2020, when he engaged with the protesters, up to October 20, 2020, when he inaugurated the Judicial Panel of Inquiry, being the first state to do that. What I observed from his conduct is that he showed empathy. He also identified with the protesters, recognizing that what the protesters are agitating for is for our collective benefits. But having said that, I've looked at the NSAS report. Some of the recommendations in a constitutional democracy can only be implemented by federal government. And those recommendations were rightly referred to the federal government and National Economic Council for implementation. As a matter of fact...
All right. So, Mr. Shitu, we are going to take those recommendations one after the other, and I'm hoping that some of the controversial ones will be able to deal with them one after the other.
Okay.
There is a debate which I like you, which years in the bar, you might be able to clarify for us, lawyers and legal minds who have debated these, which of these are the force of law, whether or not the panel of inquiry report can be set aside and the white paper can overrule it. What is the position of law in this respect? The white paper or the panel of inquiry? Which one is recognized by law?
Well, in terms of precedence, you can only sue on the basis of the white paper. Because if you want to sustain an action on what transpired as determined by the Judicial Panel of Inquiry, it is the white paper that will provide you the basis for action. But in terms of superiority, and recognition under the law, we know that the Judicial Panel of Inquiry was set up pursuant to the Tribunals of Inquiry Act, an existing law. So to that extent, you say that the Judicial Panel of Inquiry Act is superior to a white paper in terms of precedence. But your action, it will be premature for you to proceed against the report of the Judicial Panel of Inquiry without having recourse to the white paper. So if you want, the decision I'm trying to make is that in terms of precedence, the Judicial Panel report takes precedence over the white paper. But the white paper is the instrument that gives you the right to proceed if you want to sue on the basis of the report. Because the Tribunals of Inquiry Act is an existing law. It can only...
Mr. Shitu.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Shitu, does the white paper need to be gazetted before it can be recognized by law or in any court of law?
Of course, it has to be gazetted. It has to be gazetted. The way it is now, what the white paper does is to inform the public about government's, impression over the report. And that's why this one is particularly very important. I mean, the white paper by the government is that its response is founded on law. We all know that the Nigerian armed forces, for instance, the police, are under the control of the federal government. So if you ask the Lagos State government to discipline or sanction officers of the Nigerian armed forces or the police, it will be an exercise in futility. except you want to, you effect a constitutional amendment. We know the governor is the chief security officer in the state, but he's answerable, but the police itself is answerable to the Inspector General of Police, which is a federal agency.
The inconsistency that was raised in the white paper by the Lagos state government, how do you react to that, the explanation of that?
Thank you. I read that the response of the Lagos state government. I read the recommendation of the panel. And there's hardly any way you can force the response of the Lagos state government. Against the background of the evidence given by the pathologist, Obafunwa, before the panel, which the panel accepted, that there are only 3 bodies were examined. Autopsy was carried out in respect of only 3 bodies, out of which only 1 sustained injuries. And that there's no contrary evidence to report that, according to the panel itself. Now, going back, it might be possible that some other people, the numbers quoted by the panel, those who died may have been more than that. It may be possible in the realm of conjecture, in factual reality. But do we have evidence to support such deaths, even from the panel's findings? The answer is no. Courts of law do not rely on speculations. We rely on facts and evidence. If somebody dies, there must be particulars of such deaths. There must be concrete evidence produced before the panel. But from what the Lagos state government reeled out in reactions to the panel report, you can hardly fault it. They pointed out to inconsistencies in the report, which you have read out yourself, from the panel itself. The panel owes it a duty to explain the circumstances under which those 9 people died. Death is a very serious issue. It could be anybody. It could be me. It could be anybody. So one should not trivialize death. So when allegations of death is made, or a factual statement that death actually occurred is made, there must be facts and evidence to support it. And the only fact, the only person who came before the panel to give evidence concerning death is the chief pathologist. And the evidence of the chief pathologist was accepted 100% by the panel. And what is the evidence? That only 3 bodies were examined?
Mr. Shitu, so yes. there are critical issues here. First is that if whatever the Lagos state government says in the white paper, does it take away the fact that anybody died at that scene? 1. 2, the inconsistency that was raised by the Lagos state government, does it invalidate the report of the panel?
Of course, it raised serious doubts about actual deaths. Like I said before, it is possible that other than the 9 deaths recorded by the panel, many more than that may have died. But the question is, do we have evidence to support such deaths? Because the panel was set up to investigate and find out what happened, who died, how many of them died, what is the evidence to support the death. Because this is critical, not only for record purposes, it's also critical to be able to identify those who are entitled to compensation. You will note that Lagos state government, from the report and from what the governor said, has paid a total of 420 million naira as compensation. And then only 1 of those who died was recommended by the panel for compensation. So I think a lot of investigation still needs to be carried out, other than what the panel did, by some other independent agencies, or those who have records of the deaths of those people, to come forward. But the white paper focused mainly on the report of the panel. It's set up to investigate. And from that report, if you don't find glaring inconsistencies as to the number of those who died, against the evidence given by the pathologists who gave evidence, or Obafunwa who gave evidence, and whose evidence the panel itself confirmed to be credible and uncontroverted, how then do you then come about the record of all those other people who died?
Another question here, Mr. Shitu. Another question here, Mr. Shitu.
Let me illustrate.
And trusting that the people on the panel are with undoubted personality and pedigree, refusing that item, does it then mean that the Lagos State government is contesting and not wanting to accept the panel in which it constituted itself?
No, that's not the situation here. And that's the point I wanted to make. If you witness a death, for example, 2 or 3 people died in a riotous situation, and you witness it, and when it comes to giving evidence of the number of people who died, you refuse to come forward to narrate what you witnessed, then there will be no evidence before the panel to determine whether people died. I'm saying that it is possible that other than the 9 recorded by the, mentioned in the report, that some other persons may have died because what happened that day was violent and they unfortunate. But do we have a record of such deaths by the panel? From the evidence
the panel was responding and saying that there are people who appeared, the family members who appeared before the panel, people who gave evidence. So the question is that is as though the Lagos State government sent people that it trusted to go and find out something, and they came back and said, this is what we found out. And the Lagos State government said, you have lied. Doesn't that look exactly the way I've painted it tonight? That the Lagos State government said, go and find out if people died. And they came back and said 9 people died. And Lagos State government said, no, that's not true. Isn't that what has happened?
You see, in the adjudicatory process, great emphasis is placed on facts and evidence before arriving at conclusions. The Judicial Panel of Inquiry was set up to unravel the facts of what actually happened by taking evidence and then and supporting their conclusions with materials. That is why they were set up. Let me say it clearly that I have great respect for membership of the panel. Justice Doris Okuobi is a woman of exemplary integrity. And many of the members of the panel, including my good friend, Boade Borua, cannot be faulted in terms of integrity. But what they have done, what we are examining is what they have put on in the report. They themselves accepted, reported that the pathologist that was invited by the panel gave evidence that only 3 bodies were examined. And out of those 3 bodies, only 1 sustained gunshot. Only one actually died. And they believed that evidence. That's what they said. So if you now have record of some other deaths, outside what you say you believe, that would be a contradiction within the report itself. You see, they offered Lagos State government a window, a window which provided justification for the conclusion reached by the Lagos State government. If they are supported, if they are said, oh, other than what the pathologist said, we also have some other proof to show that some other people died. And these are the particulars, these are the facts, this is the evidence to support such conclusion.
So this is a logic. We are due for a break in another 1 minute, Mr. Shitu. And yes, this is a logic. And I try to bring it to you again because I know that trying to defend or talk about death takes us from the realm of civil law to the criminal law.
Yes.
But the members of the panel have said there are a lot of people who appeared before the panel. Names like Sarah Ibrahim, names like Olalekan Salami, names like Dabira Ayuku, names like Onileowo, names like the testimonies from the Brigadier General Taiwo, and a long list of about 9 people whom the panels, members of the panel said appeared and testified with video evidence that they were dead. If the government says it wanted a closure on the issue and is rejecting it, I'm asking, are there other alternatives? Could the government also now do another investigation? Because these are 9 people. These are not 2, 3, 4. These are 9 people that said, the panel said they died. And the Lagos State government, there is a possibility of 1 person. So plus or minus 8 people are under contest. Their whereabouts are dead or alive in this contest.
Well, I agree with you that maybe other than what the Lagos State government has said in the report, some kind of independent investigation ought to be carried out. because we are talking of death, which is not cheap. Every life lost is a loss to the nation. So, like I said before in my preliminary remarks, it is possible that other than the 9 people recorded, because there was a lot of violence at Lekki Toll Gate, many others may have died. But the question is, the Judicial Panel of Inquiry is set up to unravel facts, to furnish proof, to back up the facts, and then rely on evidential proof. Did they meet that requirement? The answer is no from the report. Because if you say you accepted,
right.
and that does not in any way derogate from the integrity of the panel. And that is where we have appellate procedure.
So let's take a break, Mr. Shitu. We'll come back. There are a lot of issues here and there about this report, but what we're seeking tonight is a way forward. The government says it wants closure. Again, I brought the issue of the legality of the white paper. Lawyers will argue that there's nothing like white paper under our laws. It doesn't exist. That's perhaps another conversation we might try to find closure to on the program tonight, but we take a break. And when we return, our conversation is on the NSAS panel report, the Lagos State Government white paper, and the way forward, finding closure. After the white paper, what is next? These are many more questions that we hope to answer to tonight. Stay with us. We'll be right back. With Mr. Wahab Shitu, a senior lawyer. One of the other issues raised, there were issues reported about 99 bodies dumped. There's still a question mark on that. If you're looking at paying compensation to the families who have lost, how do we find closure in this respect? It's a knotty issue, and perhaps the other ones we can also discuss afterwards. How do you find closure in that respect?
Well, to find closure, if we are talking of the need for reconciliation, the need for harmony, it must be examined in the context of the need to also satisfy the requirement of equity and justice. So and that should be the ultimate approach that government should adopt, Lagos State government and federal government, under reference. We should, without prejudice to the work of the panel, without prejudice to the white paper that has been released on the report of the panel, government should also at this stage be concerned with further investigation outside what those bodies have turned out. But further investigation in an atmosphere of cooperation by all concerned. Because it is also important for Lagos State government, Lagos, to move forward. I'm particularly very, very impressed, and I've never met in person the Lagos State governor, but I salute his statement heralding the release of the white paper report. He called for equity, he called for justice, he called for reconciliation. He offered a peace for peace, which he said he was going to spearhead. He recognized the need for people to protest, and he also recognized, he also said government is willing, has paid 420 million compensation, and is also willing to pay further compensation on proven cases of violations. And if you look at the approach adopted by government in this response, in the white paper, those matters referred to federal government by the Lagos State government are matters that can exclusively be dealt with by the federal government. And those the state government could deal with, they have also offered to address them. And I think we must also recognize the fact that those who protested on 20th October at the Lekki Toll Gate, and even days before for that, they are fighting for all Nigerians, including you and I. And government at the state and federal government must recognize the right of protest as central to the democratic tradition. When people protest, it is for the government to provide cover for the protesters to ensure that the protest is not dark and the sensitive infrastructure that is useful to all of us are not destroyed. So those who are protesting should not be seen as enemies of government. They should be seen as people who want a better Nigeria. That is the way we can bring closure to this. We need to recognize the position of government to provide for the security and welfare of the people. We also must recognize the right of citizens to protest when there is, infractions on their rights. And when they do that, we should, at the end of the day, we can only achieve development in an atmosphere of peaceful coexistence.
Mr. Shitu,
yes.
Let me take you to another part of the recommendation,
yes.
The behaviors of the officers in uniform. The panel report recommended the investigation and prosecution of certain police officers whose names are specifically mentioned. They are prominent figures in the petitions heard and determined. But it does look like from the white paper from the Lagos State government is requesting for the case files of the outcome of investigation of these police officers, which would then be forwarded to the Director of Public Prosecutions for action. How does this give confidence to those who have been on the receiving side of these alleged lawless officers who have dealt and battered the average citizen, who have gone ahead to complain to the panel?
Thank you very much. When you allege, you must prove. That is elementary. I think all lawyers understand that. So if there are infractions, there must be records of those infractions. There must be facts supporting those infractions. There must be evidence led in support of those infractions. And those are the materials the DPP of a state will rely on under the direction of the Attorney General of the state to prosecute. You cannot prosecute on the basis of sentiments. You cannot prosecute on the basis of conjectures. You cannot prosecute on the basis of suspicions. You must have cogent, compelling evidence. So what I will require those who are on the receiving side to do is to collect the evidence, gather their facts and evidence, and ensure there are adequate witnesses to support that, and forward it to the DPP or to the Attorney General. And then let us wait whether the Attorney General will do his constitutional duty, whether the DPP will do his constitutional duty. When they fail to do that, let
me come in here quickly,
yes.
Mr. Shitu. The big question is, whatever the panel was doing in the interest of the general public.
Yes.
The Lagos State government wants to act in the interest of the general public. And the perception, on the law, so you need also to be seen to be doing the right thing. Not that you are only doing it, but you are seen to be doing the right thing. So the question is that if you're looking for the interest of the people and you are looking at how people perceive this, and this is already a knotty issue, and people have complained about some of these errant police officers or men in uniform, and these cases have been brought to the panel. The question is that for the public to accept or to be able to move forward, don't you think that perhaps the government should have handled it in a better manner?
Well, let's just look at the action of the governor under the Sanwo-Olu since the protest started and find out from those actions whether this government should be given the benefit of that or not. On 9th of October 2020, for instance, when the governor approached the protesters to dialogue with them, on the 11th of October 2020, the government asked them to reduce their demands into writing, which they did. On 12th October, governor received their 5-point demand. On 13th October 2020, governor took the 5-point demand to the president. On 14th of October, NEC ordered that states should set up panels of inquiry. And Lagos State government, reacted on 15th October by setting up the panel of inquiry, the first to do so in the entire federation. On 19th of October, the governor set up a 9-man panel of credible people, like you have said. On 20th October, the governor expanded the terms of reference of the panel to include what happened in the Lekki toll gate. That shows a governor that is proactive. But the governor also needs to go a step further. If actually the government is interested in peace, the peace sought by the governor must be anchored on equity and justice. That means beyond the white paper, beyond the panel report, further comprehensive investigation can be carried out. There's no time limit against investigation or prosecution. They can set up an ad hoc committee or spearheaded by the Attorney General to ensure that further investigations to carry out to ascertain, the grievances of people. So when people allege, ask them to come forward, and then, look into it. If you take further look into it, you might find further evidence that will ensure that people who are aggrieved are compensated. Because life is very critical, and the Nigerian government at all levels must begin to take lives of our people and the grievances of our people very, very seriously. And then the populace too must cooperate with government. Because it is when you cooperate with government that they can deliver democracy dividends. And this Lagos State governor has shown commitment, and I think it should be applauded.
All right. So I don't know, because I'm speaking with a lawyer that has several years of experience at the bar, and the premise on which we're discussing the panel work is based on the Tribunal Act of Lagos State, which is the enabling law that empowers the panel to sit. And the sitting were actually open hearing, so it's all for everybody to see. It was in front of the cameras. So I tried to look at the Tribunal of Inquiry law of Lagos State. Does the Lagos State government or the Lagos State governor have the power to alter, to overrule, or to erase, or to remove any recommendation or any stance of the panel based on its recommendation as a report?
My answer to that will be, the panel was set up by an appointing authority, by the governor. And the recommendations of the panel were turned over to the governor. Governor has a duty to also look into it and see which of the recommendations can be supported by the enabling law in Nigeria, the Constitution. We know the Constitution is the organic law of the country. It's the uncommanded commander. Whether if you make provisions that cannot be practically implemented by Lagos State government, what will the governor do? Accept the recommendations without referring it to the appropriate authority that can implement? What the governor has done is to refer some of the recommendations to the federal government. And I assume that the federal government should also take those recommendations very seriously. So the challenge, the obligation to implement the panel report should not be placed solely at the doorstep of the Lagos State government. The Lagos State government may have, because armed forces personnel are involved, the police officers are involved, some other federal agencies are involved that are not under the control of the Lagos State government. If the government says, Lagos State decides to act, that will be acting on trials, not only against the Constitution.
Yeah, but the question I'm asking, Mr. Shitu, is that we are not talking about if there are inconsistencies, because the Constitution is very clear that if there are inconsistencies with any law, that the Constitution prevails. The supreme law of the land is the ground norm of our society. So the question I'm asking is whether or not the governor or the government has the power to alter any part of the panel report. Because first and foremost, how does the law see the panel report of a tribunal or a panel of inquiry like this? How does the law see it? Is it not like a precedent, isn't it?
Okay, let me proceed this way. The government sets up the panel to investigate and turn in recommendations. Government has the right to look into those recommendations and decide which ones they want to accept, supported by materials, and which one they want to reject, and which one they want to refer to relevant agencies. Of course, if you disagree with the position of the government as expressed in the white paper, then you can sue on that premise.
All right. So I understand that we have Shegun Awosanya back with us, albeit on telephone. Thank you so much, Shegun, for your efforts in trying to speak with us tonight. We've tried, and we think that we might be able to speak with you on the phone. The first and foremost issue that I'd like you to tackle is the point where the item which the Lagos State government rejected, they said is inconsistency. They doubted the work of the panel. How do you see that?
Thank you very much, Sean, and sorry for the technical hitches earlier on. the issue is this, and it's very simple. You see, lawyers tend to adopt legal gymnastics when the facts are more or less not on their side. And I think it is also an additional injustice to those whose rights may have been infringed upon or who may have suffered losses based on that incident of 20th October 2020. Look, an incident or an injustice, is what we insist that must be corrected. And when a panel was set up, to investigate this, it shows that government is trying as much as possible to extend their hand towards fact-finding and towards ensuring justice for people. And now, we have, out of 32 recommendations of the panel, 11 recommendations were accepted as is. 6 were accepted with modification, and 14 fell outside the purview of the Lagos State government and will be forwarded to the National Economic Council. And 1 was rejected. Now, it's not for that spirit or that wiring that makes us feel that winner takes all that we are in for, which is one of the bane of our society. Why can't we look at pragmatically at that which was rejected and go back to the drawing board? The DPP is still there, willing, and of course that's their duty, to take evidence if there is need to further prosecute whatever it is that needs further clarity. For example, the panel itself is not the Supreme Court. People have the right to appeal. People have the right to petition agents of the Secretary of State and continue to advocate from there. This is a win for the people. And again, the same government that rejected one of the recommendations is also saying that they are willing to give a holiday, for the incident of 20th October 2020 at the toll gate, to create which is one of the recommendations of the panel, and also to refer issues that are outside their purview to the federal government. So there is really no basis for legal gymnastics on this. It is clear and it is direct.
Segun, because we are totally out of time now, and I'd like you to, so that you can attend your event, but quickly tell me, would you be marching with the governor for the peace walk?
Would you what?
Would you be on the march with the governor on the peace walk? He said he wants to have a peace walk in Lagos.
If my mother had twins, if I'm a twin, maybe probably I would be in Lagos and London at the same time. But the fact that I'm not,
if you find your way in Lagos on the day of the walk, would you walk with him? If you find yourself in Lagos on that day of the walk, would you walk with him?
Because I am an advocate for peace, justice, equity, and fairness, I will work with anybody who wants peace. Because it does not.
All right, Segun, I guess we.
There are no absolute. The fact that I may agree with some people on certain things does not mean I am in alignment with them. So if I work with the governor today, it does not stop me from criticizing the governor. We're totally
out of time, Mr. Segun. But we hope that you get a better network and maybe we'll be able to speak with you better. But I must sincerely thank you for the time and the effort that you made in speaking with us tonight. Thank you so much. As well as Mr. Wahab Shitu, a senior lawyer who's been speaking with us from our Lagos studio. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time. And that's our program tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shinwa Kimale. Bye for now.